Hi, everyone. Good evening and welcome to our May Village Board meeting. We are holding over Zoom. A link is always provided on our website for residents to come and attend. And it is always posted following the meeting on the website and probably within a week or so. So you have access to it then if you couldn't be here this evening. So welcome. Could people please mute while we say the Pledge of Allegiance together? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. I'm going to start right at the top of the meeting tonight with staff reports. We have reports from Public Works and the Altamont Fire Department, and I saw Kyle here. Kyle, did you want to add anything to this, what you've submitted?
Nope, nothing to add. Everything's all good. Just waiting for approvals.
No, that's great. I just wanted to check in to make sure there wasn't something. Does anybody have a question for Kyle on the Fire Department report? I don't see anything. Okay. Public Works report also came in. Just a few highlights from that for the public. The hydrant flushing has ended for the spring, and they have found that all the hydrants are in good working order. So they've been putting out nixles every time they move to a different part of town. And so that whole process is complete for right now. They're working on a couple areas, one being an issue with our wastewater, a little bit too much water come in, but they've identified that problem. That was in the report for us this month, and Gil Dillon's actually assisting us, little shared services with some equipment to help us identify some areas where we're just getting too much water into our system, groundwater actually. And then they also are working and finishing up on the camp. So if the trustees, if you get a chance to go over there someday, it's they just did the epoxy new floors down. So it might be kind of something cool to see. Give it another week and they're going to do the other part, and then you might like to see it. If you saw anything with it before, it's a big improvement for the after. So that was most of that. They're doing, oh, go ahead. Somebody has something. Oh, leaf collection is going on, and and brush. Make sure leaves are bagged. That's one thing. It's and the sticks are bundled. That's something I wanted to put out there. And I wanted to thank Public Works and the Green and Clean folks as well, because Public Works made it possible for ACT to organize and get all the work done that we did. They were really great about bringing us what we needed. So I just want to thank Public Works for that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So let's move to the treasurer's abstract. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to review that and the vouchers. Could I get a motion to approve the abstract for this month?
So moved.
John is first, second. I think, was it Nick? I'm not sure.
Sure, I'll second.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I saw a hand wave, so I wasn't positive.
There's a
All
bug.
right. I appreciate that. Roll call, please.
Trustee Matulowicz,
Favor.
trustee Ganance,
In favor.
trustee Farronkov,
In favor.
trustee Scally,
In favor.
Mayor Denine.
In favor. I want to move on to the public comment portion. If you are someone or a board member that has something they want to share with the board, this would be the time to do that. Either wave at us or clear your throat if you're on the phone. We'll give you the go ahead. Oh, Tressa.
I actually do have something to share to the board and anybody listening in on the call. I've been working with some folks from the village to bring back the Memorial Day Parade for this year. It's going to be on the 23rd, kicking off at 2 o'clock. We've got some floats. We've got a lot of creative ideas. Everybody's going to be social distance marching. We'll be enforcing the masks for spectators, and we ask everybody to, follow the CDC guidelines as far as keeping your distance, wearing your mask. And culminating at the park, we're going to be using the traditional old route. We've got some military vehicles, some animals, some cloggers. So it's going to be a really fun day. And we're going to have a little short service to recognize our Grand Marshal at the end of the parade. So I hope to see everybody there.
And I'll just put a plug into trustees to get your marching shoes on. We haven't had to do this in some time, and it's a lot of fun. So, I think what, Tressa, the starting point for like trustees, just so they know for that day, where would we march from? It's the Altamont Fair gates, or like, where do you line up, or?
Let me get back to you on how we're doing the lineup. I can definitely have an email sent out to everybody. We're
Yeah,
meeting.
we have time, but, okay,
Yeah, the committee's getting together Thursday, so you'll hear from me then.
okay, sounds good, thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I don't see any movement, so with that, I will move on to the item number 1 on the agenda. It says, consider authorizing Mayor Denine to sign renewal contracts with Blue Shield of Northeastern New York and Delta Dental Insurance for the Village of Altamont employees. Can I have a motion for that, please?
So moved.
Tressa,
Second.
and, oh, Michelle, are you second?
Yep.
Okay, Michelle is second. Roll call, please, Patty.
Trustee Matulowicz,
In favor.
trustee Ganance,
In favor.
trustee Farronkov,
In favor.
trustee Scally,
In favor.
Mayor Denine.
In favor. Great, thanks. Item 2 is consider approval of Village of Altamont procurement policy per recommendation of Catherine Hasbrook, treasurer. Could I have a motion first?
So moved.
John, and second,
I'll second it.
Michelle. And before we go to roll call, Catherine, can you just give us a little background on this?
Okay, the comptroller's office gives us record, not us, all villages and towns, just kind of guidelines of where the cutoffs could be before it would have to go out to public bid or to, as you know, bid openings and gets quite involved. It used to be 29,000 for public works. They recommend that you have it around 35,000. It just saves the village, money between that 25 and 30 or 29 and 35,000 that they wouldn't have to go out to bid at that point. They could take 3 written quotes and take the lowest from there. It just streamlines the system. It's not really, that's the only change that was done to the procurement policy. And the last time it was updated was 1992. So it's really not, it's just a housekeeping kind of a reason to put it on there. That's all. So.
Okay. Okay, if there's no questions for Catherine, I don't see anybody. Could I have roll call, please, Patty?
Trustee Matulowicz,
Favor.
trustee Ganance,
In favor.
trustee Farronkov,
In favor.
trustee Scally,
In favor.
Mayor Denine.
In favor. I'm gonna read item 3, but I'm not gonna look for a motion just yet. Let me just read it. It said, consider request of Nadia Raza to establish seating accommodations in 1 parking space within the Altamont Corners parking lot. The temporary seating request is due to the current COVID restrictions on restaurant capacity. The village reserves the right to require that any temporary seating be taken down if it becomes a problem. The temporary seating will be removed when the expansion of the plaza is completed or by September 2021, whichever comes first. With that said, I called Allison today just to check in on this because this item is almost moot now. This was under the COVID, because of COVID restrictions, municipalities were encouraged to help businesses, and we did this last year with 2 other businesses to just give them some consideration of other, doing things a little off of their SUPs. But the regulations were changed as of last evening, or it was on the news this morning, I think. And these are all, the current capacity limitations are lifted as of May 19th. So Allison, I know we spoke, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that, but I think it sort of is moot as far as considering that as it stands. Oh, you're muted, sorry.
Sorry.
Now I hear you.
No, Carrie, you're right. The governor announced that, I think it's by May 19th, all the capacity restrictions on indoor dining are going to be lifted. You are still expected to, maintain CDC guidelines with the spacing of tables and, the wearing of masks when not at your table. But the actual limitations on capacity, regardless of the size of the facility, are being lifted. So what we have here is a situation where, it was a request to accommodate a village business to allow them to use part of the designated parking for the restaurant and the plaza for outdoor dining. And I know that you had mentioned that the village had entertained and made other accommodations last year for businesses, but I think that the situations were a little different. There was a request to use adjacent public areas in those cases, which, obviously would require the consent of the village. Here the request is for use of designated parking on the site, which is a little different. And it's also not village-owned property. So really, I think all that the village could do in this case would be to, exercise its enforcement discretion, not to initiate any notice of violation or enforcement proceedings for, this essential food service to be taking place in the parking lot. And while that's something the village could consider, if the situation warranted it, because of the change in circumstances and the lifting of those capacity restrictions, I tend to agree with Carrie that it's kind of a moot point. I don't think there's any precedent in the village for it to allow something like this just because a property owner is in the process of a new construction or an expansion of an existing building. Absent any, really no COVID restrictions, it would really just be to allow food service in areas that are designated for parking just because, their expansion area is under construction. I don't really know that there's any precedent for that in the village.
Any thoughts from board members?
I saw the schematics and it looks exactly like the seating that it was in the parking lot last year, I believe, right?
Yeah, there was some,
Looks
seating.
almost exactly the same. It's just in locations different.
It was last year, it wasn't approved seating, it was just put up.
Yeah.
And at one point it came down, I don't know when it came down, but yeah, this is now we have, well, there's several businesses now going into that spot and but again, the request came out of the planning board meeting on last Monday. As a COVID consideration, that's why it came to our board. Okay, that's why it ended up here. But since those have been lifted, I kind of thought, and that was.
It's not the board to decide at this point, as Allison had pointed out, that due to COVID restrictions, we would have to vote on it. So no, we no longer have to vote on the COVID restrictions. Therefore, this is something that
because they're being
needed for our agenda.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I don't know how other people felt. I mean, I was trying to think of what to do with this on here. Is it, Allison, is it something like a motion to table additional COVID seating for Curry Pata, or something like that? Like, what was the motion?
You guys made a motion, it was seconded, right?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't ask for a motion. I said I was just gonna read the item. I didn't
Okay.
ask for one. Yeah.
So I think, for the board to consider tonight is, consider the request. The board can, make a motion to determine that the request shouldn't be granted because the COVID restrictions that would have limited capacity inside the restaurant are no longer in effect. So essentially there's no difference now between the amount of seating, that, could be made available, or the capacity that could be made available in the restaurant, pre-COVID, post-COVID. I mean, there's no restriction. The space is what it is. And obviously we're constructing an expansion and that'll take some time, but, allowing a commercial operator to, serve food in a designated parking area because the building is being expanded and there's construction going on is much different than, allowing a property owner to serve food in the parking lot because New York State, we're in an emergency, and New York State has placed a capacity limitation on seating inside the building. So I think if you're considering the request would be, the action of the board would be either to, deny the request on the basis that it's moot because New York State has lifted the capacity limitation on indoor dining. Or if you were going to consider the request, I think it would essentially be, the village exercising its enforcement discretion not to initiate enforcement proceeding or serve a notice of violation if the property owner does set up tables in the parking lot.
Allison, if nobody's made a motion, can't we just not consider it? Not make a motion?
Yeah, that's, you can.
I
You
I
can.
do, I am curious though, because, you know, there's been a couple of things said where it's moot now because the governor's lifted these restrictions on capacity. The CDC hasn't lifted their restrictions on spacing. If she's limited in space, that affects her capacity if she still has to follow the CDC guidelines. There was an article in the Times Union this morning where several restaurant owners were interviewed and said, this lift does nothing for us because we still have to follow spacing CDC guidelines within the restaurant, which limits us. So there still are limitations in effect for restaurant owners.
That's true.
Until the interior limitations have been lifted, currently at 6
She
feet.
does
6
not
feet is
have a-
difficult in her location.
Absolutely. She will have a very difficult time following the CDC guidelines to open up the capacity of the venue.
So with that being said, this will probably be more of a planning board decision, correct?
Well,
For a variance, just for like a temporary variance?
the planning board doesn't have any ability to ease any zoning requirements or to amend the special use, to allow food service in the parking lot, when obviously that's, you know, not part of the special use permit, and that is an area designated for parking for the shopping. So it can't be a planning board decision. I think to the extent this isn't a request to use public property, it's not it's not a request for authorization to use a public sidewalk or a public parking lot. This is private property. But it is technically a violation of the special use permit and site plan because the food service is supposed to occur in the restaurant. So to accommodate the request, I think that the village could determine to exercise its enforcement discretion not to initiate proceedings to abate the violation. That would be kind of a way to accommodate the request. You know, the village board also can't approve, you know, necessarily a use that's in conflict with the special use permit. All you can do is exercise your discretion not to initiate an enforcement action or serve a notice of violation for them to stop doing what they're doing.
Because it's due to, it's not on a public property, it's on a private property.
Right, exactly, right.
So
So,
does the person who, Allison, so does the person who owns the private property have to give their okay? I'm assuming they would because they own it.
I
but
believe he has,
right.
he has?
yes.
And that,
This came up in the planning board meeting.
All right, so there's no
Gotcha.
liability aspect on us if they have someone get injured in the parking lot while they're eating by oncoming cars or anything.
That's right, because it's not publicly owned property. I mean, there would certainly be a potential liability for the property owner,
Right.
you know, to the extent that area is designated for parking and for, you know, the circulation of vehicles. But, you know, as far as, you know, the village, it doesn't come with the same potential liability as if we were allowing a use of public property.
And I don't know, Carrie, if I can interject here, it's
Sure.
Deb Haxt on the planning board. You know, I agree with Tressa, for someone like Nadia, or even like Jackie with the Farmhouse Tap and Tavern, this lifting of the 100% capacity based on, you know, you can go back to full 6 feet apart in Nadia's restaurant or even in Jackie's restaurant does nothing for them. And
yes,
I think, you know, we could go back to the minutes, but I don't think the initial request by Nadia or Jeff Thomas was due to COVID. I think it was that they just needed the extra space until the new addition is complete. I think we interjected, especially with COVID, and it kind of took off from there.
Yes,
Um,
Deb, you're
so-
right. That's how that happened in the planning board meeting, yeah.
Well, you know, I'll kind of say this, you know, there's really no precedent or authority for any board to just, you know, kind of allow someone operate in violation of their special use permit, you know, because, you know, they're, have a plan to construct more space, but, you know, they want to be able to serve more people before that construction is complete. You know, again, it could be a matter of enforcement discretion, you know, if the board, you know, determines, you know, it's not going to take any action on what would be a violation, but, you know, what Deb just said, I mean, it is a different circumstance. I mean, that there's, you know.
I'm sorry, but I was just gonna say, I'd be more comfortable looking at this from COVID restrictions side of the argument, because honestly, if you open it up and say that we could start entertaining requests years from now on, like you said, oh, we want to expand at some point. Can we now just work out inside the parking lot for a while? Any parking lot, like a business. You're kind of opening up a can of worms here for, can I do this? You know, I just think we don't want to start that precedent. So, you know, if you're gonna look at it, I would rather look at it, okay, because of COVID restrictions, although they were limited, they still have spacing issues. You'd have to look at
6 feet apart. Yes.
that way, but at least it's under that caveat of COVID.
I agree with you, Carrie. I take no issues with them having this in their parking lot. I mean, Tressa is correct and Deb is correct that they have limited space in that restaurant. For them to have this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we were not in a pandemic with these restrictions from the CDC, she could cram more people in there.
Yes, that's correct.
To do this. But, you know, granted, Nadia didn't specifically cite COVID, but I think that that's a consideration, and that's relevant here.
Yeah, and the only reason it came, and it's somehow through some emails, though, it did mention COVID, or it wouldn't have come to us. That was why, because it was under that, something we had done similar, even though it was private versus public last year. So
if you were to take this point on, we would have to say, due to COVID restrictions within the restaurant, a 6 feet guidance, then therefore that this is a reason why we would consider this motion.
the agenda item says, due to current COVID restrictions on
Yes.
restaurant capacity, that could be changed to not capacity, you know.
Yes.
I think
Just
she should just be changed.
the
to
6 foot
current
guidelines.
CDC guidelines.
Yeah.
At this point. And if I'm understanding Allison correctly, we're not making a motion to approve this request. We'd be making a motion to not enforce a violation.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Right, I would call it consider a motion to exercise your enforcement discretion.
Can I ask I guess, clarification on that one?
Yeah.
Is it really the village board that makes those or issues those violations and therefore has the discretion, or is it the building officer, or are they acting within our power and therefore we can overrule them?
Well, here's I'll just kind of say this again. It's the planning board does not have any authority to say one way or another if this should be permitted or if enforcement action should be taken, you know, absent an actual formal application to amend a special use permit or site plan. The only two entities in the village that have any enforcement ability are the code enforcement officer and the village board. The village board always has the ability to initiate a legal proceeding to enjoin an illegal use. So my understanding is that Lance had said at the planning board meeting that, you know, he would not have an issue with this and would not, you know, see a compelling need to initiate, you know, enforcement to prohibit or to cease use of this outdoor area for food service. So then the only other entity that, you know, could prohibit that from taking place is the village board. So that's why it comes here. And I do think, you know, you really also don't have an ability to approve, you know, a tenant using a portion of the parking, the designated parking area on an approved site plan for food service. But you do have the ability to exercise your discretion to say, if the property owner allows that to take place temporarily, you know, we as a village board are not going to initiate any enforcement proceedings to, you know, abate or order that violation be remedied. So essentially, you'd be exercising your discretion not to take any action.
Got it. Yeah, I didn't realize Lance had already basically signed off on it.
So if Lance is not going to sign off on it, if we choose to vote tonight not to use our discretion not to pursue any legal action or against her special use permit, therefore she can continue on temporarily due to her 6-foot restrictions in the restaurant for her capacity.
Right, but I
Okay.
would condition, if that's the board's decision, could be conditioned on it being limited to the area that she identified and also it being a temporary use, during the time period identified. Because certainly the board's not going to exercise its discretion to allow this to continue indefinitely because that is designated parking for the businesses in the shopping plaza.
I agree.
Okay.
Does it make sense? I know the date in there had to do with when the construction was done. Should there also be some sort of clause on if the CDC does relax its guidelines?
It
'Cause
could
again, right, we're saying this has to do with the CDC, not when they're done with their renovations, or or whatever comes sooner.
That's true. You can add that within our motion.
Okay, so the question
John,
is,
can you make that motion?
Can we like paraphrase what Nick and Allison said? Make that motion.
listen, can you off the top of your head come up with a really good motion that we'll have recorded, so it'll be fine?
You gonna record that?
Let me just,
Allison, I'm sorry, Allison, can't we
No.
just say that due to the board's discretion, we will allow them to use the designated space in that designated plaza up until the time that CDC relaxes its guidelines of spacing and or their construction is
Yeah.
done,
Whichever comes first.
whichever comes first, being given,
I would just be hesitant to say whenever their construction is done, just
that's my point.
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that's completely beyond their control. And there is some real issues going on in New York right now with supplies for materials.
Absolutely. So
construction
we should leave
projects
that out,
completed.
Allison, leave the
I
construction.
would say, you could have this be until the CDC restricts its guidelines or, by September 30th, 2021.
Okay.
But that's the
earlier.
date. She
And then
meant-
that would require, there's a cutoff there. So if, the building isn't constructed, then they'd have to come back here. You would have to consider, if the condition is acceptable to you and you want to, continue to exercise your discretion not to do anything, or if you want to serve a notice of violation that they got to get the tables off the parking lot.
Okay. I was just looking for like an end date. You're right.
Yeah, that I feel like is more open-ended because there's just, and it's beyond their control, they
Right,
can't really.
And the September 30th date, just for your information, the reason that I put that into the agenda item was that was the date that we allowed others last year to go until.
Okay.
So I was just using,
That's fair.
just keeping it level.
Yeah.
Right.
To my
want me-
understanding from the planning board meeting, I believe her construction is slated to be done much sooner than that. Just granted, that's not, the entire premise here, but I know that has influence too.
Alrighty, who wants to make the motion?
Well,
I mean,
Allison,
I'll read
Before you jump
it.
in on a motion, can I just might
Oh.
throw 2 cents in?
go Danny.
That you put in that motion that depending on what you want, that they have provide no electric or heating down there. Not that you have a propane infrared heater in a parking lot, or electric by extension, whatever it may be, just as a safety.
Mhm. Sounds like a good.
That's a good point, Danny. Yeah.
Is there a way, thanks, Danny. Is there a way, Allison, I don't know if you have the current agenda wording that, like,
Mhm.
take that and rephrase it, maybe?
Yeah, let me just eyeball it real quick.
Totally on the spot.
If you want, I can take a stab at it, Carrie.
All right,
So
Nick,
it's-
go for it.
I'll make a
All right.
motion to consider the request of Nadia Raza to establish seating accommodations in one parking space within the Altamont Corners parking lot. This temporary seating request is due to the current COVID restrictions it is on restaurant capacity, even if it's just the 6-foot facing it. It's de facto a capacity issue.
Okay.
The village reserves the right to require that any temporary seating be taken down. If it becomes a problem, the temporary seating will be removed when all restaurant capacity restrictions are lifted or by September 30th, 2021, whichever comes first. This temporary seating shall not include any electrical or fuel. I don't know how you want to phrase that. I'll leave that one to Danny.
Heating elements.
Yes, heating elements. There you go. Period.
Okay, so Nick, can you make that motion since you made it? Can you be the
Yeah,
first?
I did. I said I'll make the motion.
Oh, sorry.
Not reading it again.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry. Can I just add one thing at the end, just to
Okay.
say, the motion is being made pursuant to the village board's enforcement discretion?
Oh, yeah, I
Okay.
totally said that too.
Yeah.
All right.
I accept the friendly amendment.
I'll second that.
Poor Patty. Patty, can we have roll call?
Okay, so first it was Nick and then it was John,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Correct.
Trustee Matulowicz,
Favor.
trustee Ganance,
In favor.
trustee Farronkov,
In favor.
trustee Scally,
In favor.
Mayor Denine.
In favor. Okay, took a few minutes, but we got there. Great.
Good work, team.
Yeah, there we go. Item 4 on the agenda. Consider approval to hire Adrian Bush Altima as Bozen Hill Recreation Director at $20.81 per hour. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Tressa, and second.
I'll second it.
Michelle, and roll call, please.
Trustee Matulowicz,
In favor.
trustee Ganance,
In favor.
trustee Farronkov,
In favor.
trustee Scally,
In favor.
Mayor Denine.
In favor. Item 5 on the agenda is consider approval of applications from Timothy Welch, Altamont, and Peter Phillips, Guilderland, for firefighter memberships in the Altamont Fire Department per request of Kyle Haynes, Chief. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Nick, and second,
I'll second it.
John, and roll call, please.
Trustee Matulowicz,
In favor.
trustee Ganance,
In favor.
trustee Farronkov,
In favor.
trustee Scally,
In favor.
Mayor Denine.
In favor. Item 6 is consider approving Altamont Fire Department's participation in the following events. Altamont Memorial Day Parade on May 23rd at 2 p.m. and Burn Memorial Day Parade, May 31st at 10 a.m. and Knox Memorial Day Parade on May 31st at 12 p.m. They're gonna be busy. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
John is first and second.
I'll second.
Oh, we had a tie. I think Nick got in there first. Sorry, Tressa. And can I have roll call, please?
Trustee Matulowicz,
In favor.
trustee Ganance,
In favor.
trustee Farronkov,
In favor.
trustee Scally,
In favor.
Mayor Denine.
In favor. Item 7 is consider approval of board minutes for March 10th, March 22nd, March 30th, and April 6th, 2021. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll motion.
Michelle is first and second.
Second it.
John is second, and roll call, please.
Trustee Matulowicz,
In favor.
trustee Ganance,
In favor.
trustee Farronkov,
In favor.
trustee Scally,
In favor.
Mayor Denine.
In favor. Does anyone have anything before we move to item number 8? I will tell you one thing that is very exciting, should we or when we get back into person, the audio video system that we had purchased for the community room for our meetings has been completely installed now. The camera, the microphones, everything, and Patty and Ginger, myself, and Jeff and Larry will be training on it next week. So anybody else that would like to come Friday afternoon to train on it, in case you want to know how to run it, feel free to join us. But
2
it
o'clock.
looks great, and DPW did a lot of the work to save us money. We came about $5,000 under what we budgeted. So You know, so far.
That's
so
great.
Yeah.
Save money.
Yeah, it worked out really well. They did some work and some of the prices turned out better than they first told us. So I'm excited to get that going for when we decide that we're gonna start, you know, when things, we decide we want to come back to in-person meetings. So,
Yep.
Can I ask
Carrie, I did make a call about the Wi-Fi as well. They just didn't get back to me, so I'll follow up tomorrow.
excellent, thank you. Yeah, we're trying to get the Wi-Fi. We need that back there as well.
Can I
Okay.
ask
so
a-
oh,
Can I
go
ask
ahead.
a follow-up on that?
Yeah.
When are we planning to start going in person? I know it seems kind of sudden, right? The governor just waved his hand and
Yes, I
removed all
know.
these restrictions, like.
We
what-
haven't talked about it
what's
yet,
the risk?
honestly. We were doing the whole, if we didn't have to meet for a while, like everyone else,
Yeah.
staying where we are. I personally see us by September back in person. We don't generally meet in August unless we have to. If it's something you guys can think about and get back to me when you'd be comfortable doing it. I mean, I think we have enough room to have the
I
appropriate.
feel like we're 6 feet apart to begin with. When we're in that
Yeah, we
room.
are.
We are, and then we can put the audience chairs that way. I mean, is it something that, we want to consider for, I would say maybe July would be the first time before September. We could always try it in July, mid-July, and see how that goes. I want to make sure we have the system running and that Patty and Ginger and everybody understands it, because it's not just the audio, it's also video now. So we just want to make sure we, maybe we should do a trial run in July if numbers stay the way they are. So we can talk more about that maybe next month.
Things seem to be monthly anyway, so they
They
might,
do. They do.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
might be 3 feet apart by then, so you never know.
Yeah, no, I don't have any objections to meeting it, but we'll make sure everybody's on the same page with that, so. All right, so email me too if you have some thoughts, that's fine too. All right, item 8 is consider motion to adjourn. Can I have a motion for that?
So moved. No.
Second.
Aye. That was John and then Nick. was
Aye.
second. And roll call.
Trustee Matulowicz,
In favor?
trustee Ganance,
In favor?
trustee Farronkov,
In favor.
trustee Scally,
Favor.
Mayor Denine.
In favor, and I just want to thank Danny and Deb for coming and helping us out tonight. And as always,
Thank
Allison, thank you so much. Catherine, nice to see, well, hear you, didn't see you, but heard you. Have a good night. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Right now.